What is going on, IF Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about 5 intermittent fasting lies that you may still think are true, even though they're actually completely false. Stay tuned. So with the rise of intermittent fasting and people actually adopting that style of eating and regimen to use that for weight loss and health benefits, there have been a lot of clashing elements that come from the traditional dieters or people who have pushed the traditional method over time. And because of that push and pull that we get from traditional dieters versus those who do intermittent fasting and enjoy the intermittent fasting lifestyle, there have been some clashing rebuttals to the intermittent fasting system. And sometimes when groups of people are trying to prove a point, they overreach and they take little anecdotes of information to come to a conclusion that unfortunately is completely false. So let's jump right into it, starting with number 1. So you might be saying to yourself, what's the point of doing that when it's all about the calories in versus calories out? And what that does is just create a mathematical solution. But the body is much more complex than a mathematical solution. It is the equivalent of ordering 200 brown coats from a company for your new brand, Brand Coats Incorporated, and getting 200 pink coats delivered to you instead. You're gonna be like, what the heck? I didn't order 200 pink coats. I ordered 200 brown coats. Why did you give me 200 pink coats? And the guy going, well, it's the same thing. You got 200 coats. What's the big deal? I wanted the brown coats. It's called Brown Coats Incorporated for a reason. Yes, guys, you can lose a specific number of calories, but you can lose glycogen instead of body fat. You can lose muscle instead of body fat. All of those things in your body carry calories. This study done in 2010 shows that a fasted training is more potent than a fed training to facilitate adaptation in muscle and to improve whole body glucose tolerance as well as insulin sensitivity. And we know that when you increase your muscle adaptation, improve glucose tolerance, and increase insulin sensitivity, what you're doing is you are tackling body fat, because the more insulin sensitive you are, the more body fat gets reduced. The more insulin resistant you are, the more your body fat gets stored. So when you train in a fasted state, what you're telling your body is, grab the energy that you need for this workout directly from my body fat and not from anywhere else. Contrary to what you may believe, fasted cardio, fasted training does make a difference, because it's not simply about the numerical value of how much calories you're actually gonna burn, but it is actually more important to know where that calorie is being burned from. And when it is predominantly your body fat, I don't know about you, but I would say that that definitely matters. Now this is a perfect segue to move on to number 2. Now, encompassing everything, not just working out, calories in versus calories out is all that matters, is the pride and joy of all of those who push away from intermittent fasting. They love to tackle this one aspect, which is calories in versus calories out is all that matters. However, they are very contradictory to that, because then they eat 6 meals a day within increments of 3 hours to ensure that they're doing something to speed up their metabolism, even though it's a contradiction to their argument of intermittent fasting, because you are just going in the opposite direction. You're eating so much throughout the day as opposed to just eating one meal, and you're condemning eating one meal because you say that it's all about calories in versus calories out. So what's the point of eating one meal? Then I can say the same to you. If that's your philosophy on that, then what's the point of eating 6 meals within 3-hour increments if it's all about calories in versus calories out? Why not just eat the traditional family style breakfast, lunch, dinner, just 3 meals throughout the day? But of course, they always get stuck when you tell them that, because they believe in constantly eating as the best way to go. So that group of people in themselves have already proven that they don't believe in calories in versus calories out being the only be all end all. But the thing about calories in versus calories out definitely not being just the be all end all is the calorie allocation allocation, which is what are you actually burning. As I just touched on with the fasted cardio and fasted training, it matters where your calories come from, so that is a moot point. You simply don't want to lose weight by losing calories. You can cut your leg off and you will instantly lose about 10 to 15 pounds. But do you want to have just one leg and be 15 pounds lighter? No, it's not just about the weight and the calories itself. It's about where the weight is coming from. You want to maintain muscle as much as you can, and you want to burn as much fat as you can. Now, since I've already somewhat elaborated on this from the first part, let's move on to number 3. The fear of losing muscle. A lot of people say you must have protein synthesis. You must have protein moving throughout your body consistently so that you can keep your muscles intact. Well, here's the thing. Protein synthesis is actually activated predominantly through weight-resistant exercise. And after about 48 hours of not eating, that's when the protein synthesis will start to decrease steadily. But what can fuel increase in protein synthesis is actual physical weight-resistant training. Your muscles will not decide to eat itself alive to give you energy because your body doesn't tap into your muscles for energy. They also neglect to mention that when you're fasted, you are insulin sensitive, and when you're working out, your body will use the stored body fat instead as your energy. It is only when you deplete a large amount of that energy, then it may break down some muscle and turn it into glucose to utilize that. But this process starts to happen around the 48-hour mark. So will you lose muscle if you do intermittent fasting? No, you will not lose muscle when you do intermittent fasting. And on the contrary, your human growth hormone does increase for about 48 hours, which actually protects your muscles even more than if you were to be eating throughout the day. You have to eat. You've heard this before. You have to eat every 3 hours because your metabolism will be destroyed. You will destroy it beyond repair if you do not eat consistently throughout the day, all the time, and possibly have to wake up in the middle of the night to make sure that you grab a snack so that you just keep that metabolism going. But here's the problem. It is all proportionate to the amount of food that you eat, no matter what. If you eat 2,000 calories, because of the thermic effect of food, your metabolism will increase for the time being to accommodate the 2,000 calorie breakdown, to allocate all the nutrients, to change the protein into amino acids, to connect it to your muscles, to take the glucose and break it down and transfer it throughout all the different parts of your organs, your brain, etc., your body fat storage for any excess calories that you're taking in. All of that creates the increased metabolism, and it does it based on the amount of food that you eat. It's called the thermic effect of food, the TEF. And no matter how many times you eat, it will always be proportionate to the amount of food that you're eating at that one time. And it does not stay up. It actually drops after you finish eating. So it basically makes it unnecessary on all accounts. I will have the same metabolic increase as anyone else who eats throughout the day by simply eating one time throughout the entire day. As long as I match the calories that someone's consuming throughout the day in 1 or 2 meals, I am still increasing my metabolism exactly as much as they are based on the consumption of food. But here's one of the kickers. On the contrary, because you are fasting and your fight or flight kicks in, your metabolism actually increases during that time frame. Granted, it isn't an extreme significant amount, it is a very small percentage, but when put in comparison to eating throughout the day, you actually have a higher increase in your metabolism with intermittent fasting. Skipping breakfast is bad for you. You must eat breakfast because if you don't eat breakfast, you're gonna gain weight. Studies have shown that you gain weight if you don't eat breakfast. Now let's talk about these studies. The studies that they use to correlate breakfast and weight loss is just that. a correlation, but not a causation. They have not proven scientifically that the eating of the breakfast actually causes the weight loss. It is all up in the clouds, mental scenarios where they say, well, if you eat breakfast in the morning, you're less likely to eat more throughout the day. That's why eating breakfast is much more important. But what they fail to realize is that that's not how intermittent fasting works. Intermittent fasting is a strategical device. We do not simply go on our merry way and not eat breakfast and then decide to eat whenever we want and think to ourselves, well, I didn't eat breakfast, I'm gonna eat so much more now throughout the day. No, we know exactly when we're gonna eat. We have a time frame for when we're gonna eat, and then we eat during that time frame and we stop eating. What would be the point of skipping breakfast and then just winging it and eating throughout the entire day? That's not what intermittent fasting is about. Now, if you're a person who doesn't have a structure and doesn't do intermittent fasting and you just simply skip breakfast, maybe that could apply to you, but that still is a mental thing. It's not an actual hormonal or physical body reaction to not eating breakfast. They have yet to prove in all the studies done the scientific causation between not eating breakfast and weight gain. So you can skip your morning breakfast all you want. If you have a planned intermittent fasting regimen, it's not gonna affect you at all. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 5 intermittent fasting lies that you may still believe, even though the scientific evidence is either 1, not there to corroborate that, or 2, completely refuting those myths and lies, but somehow those things continue to be spewed out, just like the 6 meals a day diet. And I want to thank my patrons for my Patreon. I'm gonna put their names right up here.